Hey up guys, it's Rory from Enlighten the Shadows here, and we are a men's mental health group that is out there to support and make a difference. Our heart in Enlighten the Shadows is to create media, mindfulness and mentoring in a way we can really impact men's lives so that we can see them transform and utterly be supported and poured out love upon their lives. So it's, even if men are just struggling with a bit of stress and anxiety, or across the spectrum, all the way to if they feel like they just want to end their life or be suicidal. So if that's you, if you feel like you have no reason to live anymore, or you just need a little bit of support, if you need some guidance about how to better your life, some of your mindsets and your strategies, we'll be honoured to have you on the journey with us. And you'll just say, welcome to the Brotherhood. We don't claim to have all the answers, but we are just here for you, extending that olive branch to see you flourish in your life. And we just say, have a go, give it a go. You never know what could happen. Have a great day. Cheers, guys. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Enlighten the Shadows. Thank you for joining us today. We are at episode 59. We're nearly made 60 now since our 2-year journey, where I humbly was setting up a laptop on top of a wine rack down in first lockdown. And I'm smiling now because I can honestly say there is light at the end of the tunnel. I was in a really dark place, guys. For those who haven't watched before, I lost my baby, and then 3 days later, my stepsister to suicide. So a lot of trauma in my life, and I thought, I got to do something about this. So here we are with many episodes, 2 years on, supporting over 600 men. So if you are struggling with your mental health and you're a man, look, we love women, but I can't relate to a woman. So right here on the screen coming up is our private Facebook group where we just support you, we encourage you, totally validate your experiences and be a listening ear for you to help you move forward in your life. So thank you for joining us. And today, as episode 59, we have Onyango Otieno. Did I say that okay-ish, brother?
Another nice try.
Not a nice try. When he said a nice try, he means it wasn't right, but it was a good try. Because just before we came on, we tried it, we practiced it. I think it's the surname I need a lot of better improvement on. But brother, welcome to Enlighten the Shadows. We're so glad to have you on.
Thank you very much, Rory. I'm appreciating of this time.
Yeah, do you know what was cool? I found you on Twitter of all places. I won't bore the viewers because I say it every week pretty much. Twitter is an amazing place to network. It has its negatives, as we know, and this last week I think we've seen a lot of that with the passing of the Queen. But we won't go there. We'll stay on track here. I read an article actually today, just curiously, that was on your feed, and it was like flipping heck. There's even more that meets the eye than this man. And so I want to unpack, brother, if that's all right, a lot of your life tapestry, your story, because I think the fact that you're here today is a miracle. I think after reading the article today of you is an even greater miracle. So going back to your childhood, because where do you live right now?
I live in Nairobi. I'm in Nairobi, Kenya.
Oh, so you're a Kenyan still?
Yes.
Yeah, nice one, man. I've actually got right next to me, I didn't even plan this. I sponsor a little girl in Kenya, and this is her.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I've been sponsoring her now for about 6.5, 7 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see the journey that she's on. And then I've got another little boy in Peru. And it's just a privilege. So there's my little connection to Kenya. I want to visit there one day. But your childhood, brother, was very challenging. Could you just go straight into that, if that's all right for our viewers, and see like what the heck you've been through as a young boy and to get to where we are?
Well, I'm actually also curious which article you came by, because there are quite a number. But probably the most recent one was about losing my sister that inspired me to begin poetry. I'm a firstborn of 3 children. My parents grew up in very dynamic homes, and they are also firstborns in their homes. Right. And I don't think they were very good for each other because there was so much violence at home, and it's not like it has ended, you know. My father was extremely violent towards my mother and myself, and that made home a very challenging place to be at. So you can imagine growing up just watching your parents fight from corner to corner, like physically,
Really?
and
Oh shoot! Like, wow.
yeah, your mother is bleeding because your dad tried to pull her hair and stuff like that.
Yes, man.
And they're arguing about really crazy things, including sex, and you don't want children to be hearing those kind of arguments, you know?
No, no.
And so by the time I was like, when I was 10 years old, something also really crazy happened at home. And I think this is the one thing that's really changed me.
Yeah.
Uh, One day, my dad came back home, and he was looking for this Bill Cosby novel. So Bill Cosby, this is 1998. Bill Cosby was humongous, and we watched him on TV here. He was a powerhouse in comedy, and especially to Black people and Africans as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so my father was a teacher, and we had a lot of textbooks at home that I hated, man, because home really just felt like another
Reminds
school.
you of school.
Like you were just coming back from school to another school. It was crazy.
Totally that.
So I didn't actually grow up enjoying books as much. I loved TV because it gave me an alternative form of education and entertainment. Um, but so this one day, my dad, he looks for this book. We actually just lived in a tiny single room in one of the slums here in Nairobi back in the day. And in a four cornered house, like if something is not there, it really isn't there. So he wasn't finding this book. And being that we lived there, me, mom, dad, and the house manager, and our uncle, who was my mom's brother.
Right.
So somehow we fit in that house, just somehow. And at some point, my dad not getting this book, something just got into his head, and he was like, "Or could you be the one who took it?"
Mm,
I was 10 years old. I didn't like novels. I think it's one trauma that I'm still carrying with novels to date.
right.
I don't read novels. And that quickly transitions to, you must have been the one who took that book because you're the only person who's in school here. Can your mother steal a book? Can the house help steal a book? Can your uncle steal a book? And you couldn't answer that. So he
Mm,
starts beating me. So I was used to being beaten up by like belts and wires, like, and everything. And this particular day, it was like different because he stripped me off my clothes, like totally naked.
right.
There were these telephone wires, like the old telephone
Yeah,
wires,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, those like hard copper. um he, our mothers would hang clothes with them.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah, yeah.
we had rolls of them just outside the balcony, and my father just went out and came back with like a piece that was like a meter long,
Oh
and
man.
that's what he starts beating me up with. And he's like,
Man.
produce the book. And I was a really tiny boy, 10 years old, you can imagine. So and my father used to beat you with his soul, like all his problems would come to this one moment, you know?
Do you think, just quickly, I'm really sorry, like I'm curiosity in me, like, thank you so much, firstly, for going here like this. Genuinely, like it's really heavy stuff to be going back in memory lane. So thank you. Do you think, or do you know of that your dad might have, and this never ever excuses his behavior or anyone else for that matter, do you think he ever kind of experienced any of that as a child himself, and he's now kind of projecting it like a cycle, or
Yeah, definitely. And that's among the things that I had to figure out in my own healing journey, because I had to understand my abuser, which is one of the hardest things a victim ever has to do, to understand your abuser, to get to the point where you understand them, even though you don't excuse their actions. So
100%.
he came from a polygamous home, and my my grandpa, my paternal grandpa, happened to have been a soldier in the Second World War for the
All right.
British. So he fought in Burma. And when he came back, he had PTSD, but nobody could know what PTSD was. So he was anxious all the time. He was angry all the time, and he beat up people. My mother would tell me, this guy, because now like it was a humongous village. Like anytime he'd get back into the village, like he'd beat up anything he saw, including chicken, like anything. So people were just running all over the place because they didn't want to get into his way. And definitely that meant my dad experienced childhood abandonment. And that meant that they couldn't enjoy intimacy, parental intimacy from their father, you know, and all of them scrambled for his attention because he was a patriarch, and in the culture back in that time, especially the man of the house, the man of the home, the man of the village was like a god. So everybody wanted his attention. But if you're a child and you can't get to this person, then you sort of have to start looking for ways to get into this person's mind so that they can see you more, so that you can feel loved, like any child will do, you know. And he was very violent towards them as well as a child. So and he also struggled with alcoholism, which is also what killed him at the end. So the post-traumatic stress just ate him up until late into his 80s, when he just couldn't survive anymore, you know.
Yeah.
And my dad just picked that up, and you know, it's just trauma, and I was supposed to inherit it by design because, you know,
Well,
he's
that's
my
that. Unless we don't, and this is why one of many reasons we exist is
yeah.
it's not about digging people out, but it's about we have to talk about these real issues. We have to talk. If you're struggling and you're at a crisis point, you know, you're causing destruction around you.
Yeah.
Like we're here to intervene and say, come on, we'll put our arm around you, and this has got to end. Like you're not a monster, but this behavior is monstrous, and we got to get around you and brother you and hold you accountable, because that's one of our principles at Enlighten is it's a 3-step model. It's ACT. So you got to acknowledge your struggles and your battles. Then it's taking time to comprehend, which is what the bit that you're alluding to about the having that love and that empathy, and if you can get there, but just that understanding of your abuser. And then the T is the bit that I'm referring to, which is to take ownership, to take action, or else otherwise you just stay put. And you know, seeing, well, you saw it, hearing what you've said, brother, flipping heck, like the destruction, it's just been passed along, passed on. Like there's no cut-off point. It's just, oh, it's projected through 3 generations, and it's just like, oh my gosh, if so, and this is again why we exist. If someone or something had interjected and provided some sort of support for your grandfather, your late grandfather, flipping it, like, I mean, we can't dwell on it now, but it just would have prevented all this destruction. So isn't it fascinating how flipping heck, things can just keep going on?
And it's still happening. That's the sad part. Like it's still happening to so many of us, so many people, even people my age who don't have this information that I do, that I had to look for and find after 15 years of searching and trying to understand myself and all that. So, you know, like going back to that moment,
Yeah.
like 15 minutes into it, and my body just started feeling like it was disintegrating. And I had to lie that I took the book just because I felt like this guy was actually gonna kill me, you know. And I was bleeding by the time, and I was sweating, and I was crying out loud. My mother couldn't do anything. So he looked at me. He was very angry. My dad was almost always angry. He was so angry, and his bloodshot eyes. And he looked at me and he said, "I'm gonna do something to you that you will never forget." Okay. So he walks out. He comes back to the house with a sisal rope this time, as if he'd planned all this stuff. And I'm on the floor. I'm still crying, and he ties my hands. Okay. It's a little triggering. So he goes into the little corridor that we had for our kitchen, and he comes back with the paraffin jerry can. Yeah, because we didn't have gas cookers at the time yet.
Right.
So I don't know if you call it paraffin or kerosene, both, like, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he opens the lid and pours some of it on my hand, okay, and strikes up the matchstick and puts the flame on my hand. So I actually have a scar here on this is my left hand, you know.
Oh yes, yeah, just down near your knuckles. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, I think my brain shut out the pain that I felt in that moment, but I've never been the same since that time. Like, I felt literally like something breaking inside me, like something. I never had a language for it, but just something just
No.
broke inside me.
Wow.
And so that wound just starts growing inside me, and I'm getting angrier by the days, 11 years old, 12 years old, 13, 14. By the time I'm 15, I'm getting into high school, and depression is here now. And I didn't know what it was. We didn't know such a thing existed, you know. And so I remember, like, stopping to go to class, and I was just hanging out in the field like somebody who had just lost his mind. And I wasn't showering for as long as 8, 9 days, and it was just horrific,
Wow.
you know.
So,
Uh,
like, do you know when that happened to you at 10? Did anyone ask about, like, obviously seeing your hand? Did anyone curious to
yeah,
say,
I
"Oh, what's
mean,
happening?" Did you feel like you had to lie, or did you?
yeah, of course I had to lie. And that happens a lot when you're used to being abused, because you have scars so many times. So you have to lie. You have to say, maybe, you got hurt doing something. And because I was a very active football player as well, so people weren't surprised to see me in bandages and stuff many times.
Yeah, I
Like,
relate to
as
that.
in, exactly. Actually, one of the reasons why this took so long to do was because my leg was swollen because of the same thing, football. So people are used to seeing me in that kind of condition, and it was an easier way to lie to people that, I'm all right. Just this just happened because I'm just physically very active. But the truth was, I was going through so much pain. I didn't even have a language for. It was so much pain, Rory. It was so much pain. My gosh, it was so much pain. And like, after that, like, I remember my mother tried to bandage me up and everything, but that's the time, like, I just started becoming an introvert, and my world just caved in. I
Yeah.
just became so quiet and withdrawn from people, and I stopped trusting my own parents, and especially my dad. I just stopped trusting him. He became a threat to me, and so you can imagine, being outside our home felt safer than
Yeah,
being at.
yeah. No, well, no doubt, and you probably, not that I'm putting words in your mouth, and not to dishonor your mum either, because I'm a big believer in kind of the stuff you're referring to, and forgiving your parents if they've hurt you, neglect you, abuse you, and find, because otherwise you become a prisoner still. And I'm into still honoring them, even though they yeah, unspeakable things that are hearing today. So, but did you feel like almost resentful towards her because she has a part to play as your
Well,
caregiver, and
I didn't, because she was also getting abused, and I was seeing
yes,
that. You see, she was also being abused, and it was much physical, and it was emotional, and I could see that. Even though sometimes she would project her anger on me,
right,
and at some point in her life, she realized that I was really suffering emotionally, because at 15 years old, 16, now I started running away from home. And I became a street boy at some point. I was suicidal, and all those things were happening. And they were taking me to these prayerful prayer people, and they did all these kind of things. But
sorry.
nothing
When you
was.
say when you say prayer people, is it like a form of um? So, like, so I'm a Christian, and some of the viewers will know that. Never was growing up at all. Like, I had a complete life transformation at 21 out in America at university. So my life got completely changed by what who Jesus kind of is as a person, not what man, women, and religion does in its ways of getting it wrong, which they do. So I know in Africa, not generally, but I know sometimes it's like a form of like they're very spiritual. So I'm Pentecostal, so I'm very big believer in the spirit realm. But I think, don't they sometimes like use exorcisms as forms of like the punishment as well? Because there was a big case here in the UK where the child was being abused so much, but they tried to say that she had possession demons, and they tried to like exorcise her, and then she eventually died. So it's a really famous case. So I don't know, when you said they take you to church, what did that mean for you in your particular context?
So my parents were both Christian, but they also believed in the traditional forms of healing that many Africans knew of before colonialism came and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I wasn't being taken to like mainstream church. It was kind of like people who offer prayers to others, people who, like, they'd offer prayers to children and other people who had very difficult life issues,
Right, yeah.
And they did really nasty things, like, like they'd bite my hand, and this guy would spit some water from his mouth that looked like sewage water. It was really dirty, and he'd bite my head, and he'd like spit out two broken glasses. So they'd insinuate that I had been bewitched. That was the insinuation, and that some people from my village didn't want us to prosper. It's just a lot of stuff. And that was even more traumatizing because it wasn't really getting to the root of the problem. The root of the problem was that my home environment wasn't conducive for my well-being. That was just it.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, those were very difficult years. And it also created a very difficult relationship with my father, because with my mom, at some point, she started getting softer with me, and really supported me through like activities I do, because I think in her mind she like knew that I was really trying my best to just get through and get by, so she'd support, like, if I wanted to go play somewhere. And like when I now became, like, I was into poetry back in the day, and sometimes some events would be out and I'm late, so she'd like open the door for me and make sure, maybe give me transport and stuff like that, and sometimes even come to the events. But with my dad, even emotionally, he just checked out from as far back as when I was 7 years old. So my life with him, 7 years going down, when I was 6'5", 4'3" to 1, as far as I can remember, we were very close. We'd watch games together, we'd play, we'd watch like music videos together, like, and he had this thing that he'd put me on top of like our living room table and tell me to dance for him. So anytime I saw my dad, I knew it's time to dance.
Yeah.
So I literally grew up dancing on tables until when I was around 14 years old. Because for me, that was an expression of love. To date, actually, I still dance as part of my healing because it connects me back to those moments, you see.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
But then I lost that. When that went, everything just disappeared, and he became this monster. And the more money he earned, and he drank more, he came home, he was really drunk, and he got violent. He cheated on my mom over and over and over again. And sometimes, like, these women would call my mother and threaten her, and all these crazy, crazy things would be told to us. So those were horrible things. And then it just so happened that by the time I'm getting to 20 years old, I am sexually abused by a house manager that like we're like living with at home.
So sorry, because you mentioned earlier when you were 10, you said there was your mum, your dad, your siblings, and then there was your uncle, and then you said there was a house manager. Is this the same person?
No, they're different people.
Right. So for our viewers, can you help what a house manager is? Is it a cleaner, or is it?
Yeah, so this is somebody you live with who helps with cleaning and cooking and washing, like doing laundry and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah, so we have them a lot on this end, especially for middle class homes,
Hmm.
because they like really, because when mom and dad is going to work, there's nobody else to take care of the house and people are
Yeah.
busy. Um, but like it's like a housekeeper of some sort,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was how difficult life was. And again, now, yeah, I'm 20 years old, and I mean the stories are many, but I got sexually assaulted without knowing that was sexual abuse. I didn't
Right.
know, and until 10 years later when I'm going through therapy that it came to me that this was happening. So when I get to 22, 20, 23 years old, I meet this group of friends who I was in campus, and we were going to school with the same bus, and we struck a friendship with one of them who brought us all together. This is like the reason why you came to know me through the tweets.
Hmm.
And all of us, like, we were practicing Christians at the time. And we developed a Bible study group.
Yes.
So when people were coming for the Bible study, we all discovered that we all had issues with our fathers, and it becomes the first safe space that we create for ourselves to talk about these issues. And that commonality just brought us together
Mm.
because, again, we were really in love with the message of what the gospel spoke to our hearts in regards
Yeah.
to um, love and forgiveness and doing better. That is outside all the politics of the church, like just this, the good news of, brotherhood and coming together to fellowship. And,
Mm.
that was something that we really were in tune with. So this was that. And back in the day, there was no WhatsApp. So we had like a private Facebook group where, because I still lived with my parents, when they were fighting in the other room, I'd just wake up at 3 a.m. and write on this Facebook group. And in the
Wow.
morning, somebody would get back to me to like comfort me and stuff like that. And then when we meet physically, they would just hug me and just let me rant away. So I felt really supported. And I tell them to this day, I don't know what would have happened to me if
Mm.
that space did exist. I really don't know.
It's true brotherhood, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having each other's backs, not necessarily having the answers, just
Yeah.
that space to listen, to comfort, and you know, I think it's really
Yeah.
powerful.
Oh, it was revolutionary for me, and that's the one thing that taught me that community is one of the simplest and yet most powerful ways people who are struggling can be supported. Because you don't have to have the answers, but just the
No.
feeling of comfort that there's somebody who understands, and they're not alone. There are other people who are there with them to hold you, to be with you,
Mm.
to empathize, to support you through even other things that you can't do for yourself. Because now I fell into the I've been experiencing depression for quite a while through my 20s, and the last time it happened was that 2017 when I was suicidal again.
Mm.
And this is now the time now I began therapy. But then I wrote about it and I reached out to them as well. And they would come to my house and they'd like open the curtains and they would do my laundry and wash my house and cook for me. And one of them is a DJ, so he would like do live mixes in the house.
No way, that's so sick.
So
Love that.
I honestly, I felt so loved. Like the only thing I would do was just to wake up and spread my bed. That's all I would do the whole day. And these guys would like come home in tons because guys were going to work, and they would just come home and check up on me and just get to know how I'm doing and stuff. So I was literally loved out of depression. And when I wrote about my experience then, so many people got back to me and they were like, yo, we're also going through this and we don't even know what to say. We don't know what it is. And so I was very curious, like, how is it that so many of us are going through this thing, but nobody's talking about it? So I got onto the internet, and that's the first time I'm really interacting with mental health properly, because I had just heard of mental health, but it wasn't something that really reverberated
Yeah,
inside my
it's just some phrase. Yeah.
yeah, so now I get deep into it, and I remember you remember like the feeling I told you, like I felt like something cracked in me when my dad burnt my hand. The first day I met that phrase post-traumatic stress disorder, and the way they explained it there, I felt like something cracked inside me. And this time it's like an opening for healing, because it was like, oh my gosh, I recognize this thing. I know this thing.
Mhm.
This is who I've been for the last 15 years of my life, you know? And I was just crying like in front of my laptop screen, because I was like, I never thought there was a way out. I never thought this thing even had a name, you know?
Wow.
So that was like absolutely, and because I'm a writer, I'm a creative, anything I'm learning, I'm just taking it back to my community, back to my followers and stuff like that. And
It's
so
amazing.
even like going through therapy, it opened me up to even more understanding on these terms. And I started working on my childhood, and it took years. Oh my gosh, it took time, but I did it with so much love around me, so much kindness. And that's the thing that also challenged me to challenge men out here, to just to be better, to do better, and especially
Mm,
because living in a heavily patriarchal world where we are carriers of so much violence that was meted upon us, and we just keep projecting it on people, and especially like now our female partners and even other men. Like,
mm.
those are the cycles that we must just break. We have to break those cycles,
Yeah,
you know. So
massively.
I began a project where I created a safe space for sexually abused boys, because those are people who don't ever know where to
Mm,
go and how to talk, because again, this masculinity thing. And I've actually been fundraising for it, because I take them to therapists, because I work with a number of actually one of them is in London, actually, like these therapists who help me with these boys and men,
wow,
to
man.
take them through their healing journeys. And so far I have like 25 of them from East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And so we also have this WhatsApp group where people just talk, you know. And I
Wow.
later on created a number of virtual communities as well for mental health support and for healthy masculinity, where guys just talk about what's going on in their lives. And so yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
Mate, serious, like, hats off to you and massive respect, brother. That is the most incredible thing. Like, I was nearly tearing up that bit where you talked about the community and of the brothers, how they just came round and they just showed you that love and they reached in. They didn't really have the answer, didn't say anything. They just kind of was just there. They were present. They showed up, and there's so much power in showing up. And yeah, I was just like tearing up, man, because like you've experienced such an astronomical amount of pain and suffering, which no person should ever have to experience, but you have. And what I love about you and hearing this today is such a privilege to hear is the fact that oh wow, you have not let this define you. You have not allowed it. You have not allowed that monstrous um destruction. And not that we're not talking about the people here, because you have to be very careful to not write people off, but the behaviors, the destruction and the pain and agony that's been passed on, that you'll probably admit you're not 100% where you want to be all the time, but the fact that you have not allowed that to become who you are, you've overcome, and that's what's so inspiring. And like, and I know I can see it coming through the camera, and I can hear it in your voice, like you seem so authentic, and the fact that you're in that place of general holistic healing, it's just such a beautiful sight to see after hearing such horrible things. And it inspires me, it inspires me to go, wow, like I can keep going. Like, to be honest with you, and vulnerably to the viewers, like I've had a really tough day today. Just curveballs coming out of nowhere, which are very disruptive and destabilizing to me and my future. And like, I just got this word in my heart, my head, my spirit, whatever people relate to, which was rationalize. And sometimes you feel like you can't rationalize. Sometimes all you can see is this chaos and it's all consuming. But if we can just try and do that, where we get these men into a place of rationalizing this, because at the end of the day, when you're going through it, you start thinking all sorts of horrible things like, I'm the problem. Oh, it's just me. They hate me, or this situation is because I'm unworthy, or I hate myself. The list can go on, and it can be so difficult to battle those thoughts. And and you went to therapy, so that's something I really wanted to touch on, is because a lot of men don't want to go there, right? I call it Pandora's box. Once you open it, there's all sorts coming out, and I think a lot of men know that, so they resist it and try self-preserve more. But there's a Dutch, what's the author's name, where it says the brain forgets but the body keeps count.
Yeah, that's Van der Kolk.
Van der
Yes.
Kolk, that's it.
Yes.
And it's just like, it's so true. Like, if we as men think we can just hold it together and man up, I'll get through this, push through. Yeah, you might think in your head that might be the case, but your body will leak this trauma, whether it's through abusive behaviors, whether it's through night terrors, whether it's through anxiety, it's crippling, but you try and maintain it, whether it's triggers from certain things in society, or that you see or feel or hear or touch or even taste around you. So for our viewers, can you just kind of share how transforming, and actually also how difficult it may have been at the start, but by putting in that work, can you just explain that power of getting that help and having therapy?
I think one thing that was a little different for me is the fact that I started journaling when I was 15. Again, because the amount of pain I was going through, I really felt like my body was burning all the time. Like, I felt like if I didn't get something out, I was gonna die. So I began journaling, and the poetry as well began when I was 16. So that sort of gave me some kind of window to just pour something out. Not all of it went out, but just some of it went out, to get to the next day and the next day and the next day. So 2017, and I'm going through this depression again, and I'm suicidal, and I am coming out, and my friends are here. I really thought to myself that I needed to get to the bottom of why this feeling keeps coming back to me, and one of the reasons why it's very difficult for men as well is because in our culture and how we've been taught masculinity, from a very young age, you are separated from your emotions as a boy. So it's like you're actually being designed to be a tough thing in your adulthood because of what men are supposed to be in their adulthood. So this idea of leadership, the idea of stoicism, this idea of showing direction and all that, like nothing is supposed to make you stumble. You're separated from your emotions, and you see many times for women, they are intertwined with their emotions again, because of the culture of you're supposed to be caregiving, you're supposed to be mothering, you're supposed to be taking care of people and stuff like that. So these extremes actually end up working more against us, just for the sake of what is sold to us as social order, And so for a boy, like your emotions just keep brewing up and brewing up and brewing up. You get into your teenage years, you have all these emotions going and feelings, and you can't express them. You're not supposed to express them. You don't want to be embarrassed. People are gonna be laughing at you. And then older boys are also looking at you, and there are all these ideas they're putting into your head about who a real man is supposed to be, and you want to look cool and you want to impress people and all that. So you're getting into early 20s, mid 20s, you're probably, thinking of marriage life and all that. And then you settle into a family and all that. But then you realize you actually don't have a hold of yourself.
So how on earth are we supposed to inject life and a stable love, not perfection, which is what you
Yeah.
allude to correctly about this machine mentality, not feeling anything. Like, how on earth can we expect men to take
Yeah.
responsibility, to lead in a good way and feel things and talk
It's,
about that when we're trained to just basically be a robot?
yeah, it's impossible. And
Right,
for
man.
me, I am not even surprised at the level of male violence that is out here. We were designed for it. We were designed for the
Mm,
violence because all these things we feel inside us, we don't know anywhere how else to get it out other than through anger and
mm,
extremism. We don't know, right? And so all these jumbled up emotions are like entangled wires inside us. And for you to disentangle even your earphones, if you find them entangled, for you to disentangle them, you can't do it hurriedly. You have to like do this. So
mm.
that's what the
Good
journey
way
of
to put it.
therapy does. And it's a painful as fuck process, man. Like
Mm,
one wire is almost like 5 years of this, and another wire is like,
mm.
so you have to like be very patient and be very rational, like you're saying, understanding. But then also it really depends on the of this service. They need it.
And I was gonna also, on that point you made about being patient. Like, being patient doesn't mean, oh, you're gonna be calm all the time. Being patient in therapy is actually acknowledging that it is gonna be crap. You are gonna feel terrible. You are gonna blurt out loads of tears. But the patience, which I think you're referring to, is from my experience, is that that's okay. The patience is saying there's a process here and this is hurting, but that's okay. Like,
Mm,
it's having the patience to know that as men, we fix things, right? We want it done. We're like, right, if I put A and B together, I get C. So, but in therapy, it doesn't work like that. It's some therapy can last 4
yeah,
weeks, some therapy can be 2 years, some therapy can be ongoing for many years. Like, but it doesn't mean the person's doing it wrong. It's just untangling everyone's headphones per se is tangled differently, and some have more knots. And that's why honestly, it's a great analogy. That's why some have some more knots, and it just takes that time to unlock it, man. So I love
yeah,
that. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah. Yeah, and what you alluded earlier about, the mind forgetting what you might have gone through, but the body remembering. It's the same thing for many boys who grow up traumatized. You're in an adult body, but your body never learned how to process emotions. You really never learned how to process emotions, and yet everything in life is about processing. So even rationalization is a process. It's a process. And if you don't have the tools to process pain, you know, because when you think of anger, anger is a very raw feeling. It's really raw.
Yeah,
It's not processed. It just comes out,
right.
you know. So it's
That's right.
because we don't know how to process, right? And yet still, when you go deeper, the primary emotion around anger is fear. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
and
probably
shame as
fear
well.
and
Yeah.
shame for sure. Like, like, oh, this is not who I'm supposed to be, or I'm not supposed to feel this way. And because I still want to look like I'm the one on top, I get out, and end up probably hurting somebody else. So therapy really was transformative for me because I put a and B and C together to make sense of the dots going back, that created who I was at the time. They
Right.
made me make sense of, so this is why I act this way when this is happening to me. Oh, so this is why I particularly use these words when I'm identifying myself. This is what actually happens to my brain, and this is what I can do to change it. You know,
That's, yeah, man.
yeah, like, so my dad, it wasn't really him, it was the things that happened to him and how he responded to them.
It's so liberating, isn't it? When you get
Yeah,
to that,
it
when
was
you
like,
get to that place.
oh my, mind blowing, mind blowing. And because I had been carrying burdens upon burdens for so long, man, like it
Yeah,
was crazy. I was heavy, and just learning to let them go. And my dad and I, like, we are not the best of friends because he's still very abusive to my mom. And it's those hard situations where, like, my mom has really struggled to live an abusive relationship because when those kind of things happen. So I had to create boundaries between myself and him, which was
yeah,
something I was never really prepared for, because everybody wants to be close to their dad, everybody
of
wants to be
course.
close to their parent. There are just so many things, man. But what I've just learned over time in life is that the most important thing is that you understand life to your own meaning, like your own meaning, not your father's meaning, not your mother's meaning, not your siblings' meaning, just your own meaning. Because
That's
when
powerful.
you understand your own meaning, you're gonna get people who relate to that meaning, and that becomes your community. Those become your friends. And to be honest, I feel incredibly lucky. Like, a lot of crazy things have happened to me, but also a lot and a lot of lovely things have happened to me. And
That's so
I
good.
like sharing that light back, because like, when I did that tweet, I was in my kitchen. I had no idea that thread was gonna go viral. I just woke up one day and said, okay, today I want to, like, just share something about, because I've been doing that. It's my everyday life. And the number of DMs that I got from people who were telling me in the thousands that they were struggling. In fact, I was trying to get back to everybody. It was hard. It
Tough.
was very
Yeah, very
hard.
tough.
I'm actually right now on a social media break because that period was very engrossing for me, and I had to. And you see, that's just because this people screenshot this thing, and it's on Upworthy, and it's on all these big social media pages, and people are DMing me, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It was a lot, but at the same
Flipping it,
time.
mate. I was going to say, well, yeah, I feel even more honoured now that you've got back to me and we're having
Honestly,
this amazing chat. So thank you,
it was
brother.
honestly crazy. It was honestly crazy.
Wow.
I just managed to get back to some people, and thankfully you were among them.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, like, for me, just showing up here, it's an opportunity to get to more people that I can't with just one page, that they like my Twitter account, you see. And I was also incredibly honored that you felt, oh, this is going to be a good addition to the work we are doing here. And you know um, I, I I was more than happy to heed to your call.
No, mate, you're a ledge. Thank you, brother. Before we do finish there, I wanna ask you our Enlighten the Shadows question, mate. Um, wow, you've already alluded to how dark it got for you. I have as well in this episode. I don't do it every time, but we've both been in that place, that really dark place in the shadows, where you you just can't even sometimes communicate as a man how bad it is. But there'll be men watching this and they feel similar, because we don't always feel exactly the same. They're similar where they don't want to be around anymore. Those suicidal thoughts are going. Can you give a short piece of advice, brother, for a man like who'd be watching us feeling that way?
I think if I would take myself back to that moment, when I felt like just outing myself, I think what I needed to know in that moment was that my pain was real and it was valid. And many times our culture does not pay attention to that, like the validity of somebody's experience.
Wow.
Because many times it's not that it's death that somebody really wants. Many times it's just the pain that I want to disappear. I just want it to go. and death looks like an easier option because I'll never feel it again. I'll never feel the pain again, right?
100%. I relate to
Yeah.
that. 100%.
So your pain is very valid. You don't have to understand all of it, but it is there and it is valid, you know. And if there's somebody who's in that moment right now, I'm telling them, I understand. I understand that they're in pain and that the pain is valid, you know. And so what they do with that, sometimes for me, I'm like, sometimes we have to leap out of what we've always known, a little courage, a little risk taking by just getting something out, expressing something out, you know, telling somebody, yo, I'm struggling. They don't have to have the answers. And I think we fear many times because we don't know what is somebody going to say, you know. They don't have to have the answers, but
Right.
it needs to get out of you. Just say it. You don't know. For me, I would say vulnerability has completely transformed my life. Completely. Like, I never feel I have to keep things inside because I know
So good at it.
I have a friend on the other side. I'll just give them a call. They don't have to understand everything, but they listen. They listen to
There
me.
you go.
You know?
I
So
love it.
yeah, I encourage guys, like, your pain is valid. You don't have to understand all of it, but look for a way to get it out. Get it out. Just get it out. Yeah.
Thank you so much, bro. And that's why we reached the bars as well. So here's our QR code. So just here, you scan your phone, and we've got these reached into men because also men go to pubs and bars to externalize and project things because alcohol numbs it, and it's one of the most masculine places. And we know that men might not want to open up there, but actually they'll be playing those thoughts in their head whilst drinking, and the vulnerability may be leaking out through ways that don't actually help get it out in what you're referring to. But in our group, it's got that place where men can on Facebook. So yeah, fellas, if you are feeling like we both felt, please just reach in. Like, we're reaching into you, and as my brother's here saying, it's that bit of getting it out somehow. Just get it out, and that's how you can do it. And you don't have to have all of the best words, or it can look messy to us, but it doesn't frighten us, it doesn't freak us out, it doesn't shock us. So yeah, man, it's been sick. Thank you for coming on to episode 59 with us, brother. It's been honestly, it's been a privilege, and it just got better and better as it went along, with you just pouring out your wisdom, your experiences, and we appreciate it. And hopefully we'll keep in touch. So yeah, anyone who has not subscribed to our channel, just coming up on the screen, please do that. It's below this video, just below. It's a red button. If you can click that, what that does ultimately is it gets more reach on YouTube. So there's nothing sexy about men's mental health. This is why we're having these resources. So please, if you can, click that button. If you haven't got a YouTube account, it takes 1 minute, and we'd appreciate that. So guys, we'll see you next time. Last episode we had Cracked, the online gamer who I absolutely love, from Canada. He is the funniest guy I know, and it was class to have him on. And then next time we've got Julie Foster, who, of all places, I met at a wedding down south. Me and my wife got on with her like house on fire. She's going to talk about the 4 communication animals that we are, which is, I think, a monkey, an elephant, a dolphin, and a lion. So we're looking forward to it. Cheers, guys. Thanks, brother.